What's up, guys? So I'm here with one of my students, Billy, Big Shot Beats, and he's worked with the game, Jadakiss. So really done a lot of big things in the industry. It's been super dope coaching him. So just wanted to show you guys essentially what he did to get results in the program. But yeah, how are you doing today, Billy?
I'm doing pretty awesome, man. Great to come on here and basically share my experience with some of the stuff that you showed me. For me, it's always an ongoing learning journey. I don't know everything, and if I can learn from somebody else, I'm always open to it. So yeah.
Got you. Yeah, because I mean, you're doing a lot of like kind of like live events and selling expensive stuff already. So I guess like, how did you even find me in the first place? I know I kind of like put up some content here and there and that type of stuff.
No, pretty interesting because I'm always active on social media, and there's certain things that I look for on social media that I want to come on my feed, and I guess I was in a period where I was like trying to improve on my high ticket selling or like high ticket offers type thing, and then I kind of seen an ad come through from you, so the hook was pretty good. I got intrigued, and then this is how the conversation started. So I think at least your marketing was pretty on point.
Okay, got you. Yeah, I couldn't remember because I know sometimes I'll go and run like some little advertisements, that type of thing. So, but yeah, I'm glad it stood out to you because yeah, you're super dope, man. And I guess like the first question that I had for you was essentially like, what do you think were some problems that you're running into that were keeping you from seeing even more success than you've already seen in like the online beat selling space?
Yeah, so a couple of things is, positioning. So the way that you're communicating with the artist is very important so that uh, they can understand you and what you're offering. So there may have been a little bit of a disconnect with my approach because I was trying to sell them something that maybe or not necessarily was something that they needed. And then the second thing is, really refine my communication skills on sales calls, right? So I find that I was getting on a lot of calls. Like I'll talk about like, what I mean, like hundreds and hundreds, and then the conversion, meaning like turning them into, paying customers for the services that I was, offering was pretty challenging, right? So I was always looking for ways to improve on that. And I think those are the two things, right? Like the way that you communicate your offer and the way that you actually go about converting them into paying customers, paying attention to what they actually need so that you can, bring the solution to the table.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I think that it is important to do a lot of volume. Like my approach is typically pretty volume heavy too. And
Hmm.
I know even like I've heard from Alex Hermosi, I think he said like volume negates luck.
Right,
Um,
right.
and I think that that's true up to a point because
Definitely,
I've
definitely.
I've done when I first started getting into sales calls, I had no sales training, none of that stuff. And I think I was like 5%, were actually paying me for the stuff. So I don't know if that was kind of your what you were seeing as feedback was that like you weren't really getting a high enough percentage to make it worth it, or where were you kind of at with calls before the
Well,
video?
yeah. So my experience was with calls is that I knew that I should be at around 20%. So basically, being able to convert 20 out of 100, but I would only convert, say, I don't know, say 2 to 3 out of 100, which to me,
Yep.
seemed pretty low. But there's always room for improvement. And as you dial in your process and you basically eliminate what doesn't work and you keep applying what does work, because we're all different. It might be different for you and I, even for the ways that our personalities are. So I knew that I had to increase that, and that the industry average for that is about around 20%.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it just depends on the artist because some artists are ready to move right away. Others need a little bit more time. Some may not have the funds. So it's like trying to get that alignment is like the most important thing because there's some things you can't control, obviously. But with the things you can control, it's like if we can push through sales, it's like cool. And I know you were getting more consistent sales, I think, since joining the program. So I guess like run me through like what your kind of success was in the program, what you were selling, that type of thing.
Cool. So what I really was able to improve is first of all the way I communicate my offer, right? So we were able to dial in on the pillars that I have for my offer so that it can make the most sense for the artist that I'm talking with. But then I also improved my selling process with a two call like with two call calls instead of the first call. So the way that I used to do it before is that I would get on that one call and then I would try to, sell them and get them to buy something on that one call. And then what we did different here is that there's like a two call process that happens where you connect with the artist first, and then when you really take time to connect with the artist, get to know them, build a rapport, this is what can open more possibilities so that you can see fit with them. And then from there, leading to the next call, we get in there with the intention and them knowing that it's going to be something where you're going to potentially, if it's a good fit, talk about, an offer, the process that is going to bring them to the point where they're going to buy something. And for me, my specialty, I thank God every day for this because I have the ability to create custom exclusive beats from scratch for artists, right? So they can have an idea, they can have a vision for a song, and then they can give me certain elements. Maybe it's a reference or a track that they like, and I can model after it, pull out some elements, put my own twist into it, and it's rarely that I miss my shot on those. And this is why some artists call me one shot, beyond the big shot beats, which is the
I
name
love that.
of my brand and stuff like that. But yeah, so I offer custom exclusive beats, and I was able to, to my surprise, with that two call close process, being able to close at least five to six of them at $1,200 or more, right? So it ranged between 1,200 and 1,500, and then I also use the empathy model in this because sometimes artists may want something exclusive, like a one of one track that would be built from scratch with them. But sometimes they need a little bit more quantity than the full one quality on the one track. So it happened a couple of times where it ended up being like a multi beat deal. But for the most, it's the one custom exclusive beat that gets built from scratch. And then
Yep.
something interesting that I did different this time is that I could confidently do it behind closed doors. Like I'll take the request, I go and work on it, send it back to them, and they're like, "Wow, this is exactly what I wanted." But then I opened it up and I added some more value by including them in the process so that they can actually be right in front of the project as I'm working on it with them on a Zoom or virtual call. And then that's what added a lot more value to the offer so that they can actually be a part of the process as I'm building that up. So that really helped me improve on the sales process by including, those two things, right? So the two call close process and really dial in how I'm communicating the offer with specific pillars where they get to see the value and what they're going to get.
Nice. No, I love that. And so, and you mentioned something because I do want to make sure it's like pretty, transparent and clear. So you said the empathy model. And so what is that exactly like when it comes to sales?
So empathy, meaning that, when you're connecting and building rapport with someone, is really, you know, basically for the people that are going to be watching this, you're going to be improving on how you're selling and communicating offers or, the service that you want to sell, right? So empathy means you're really taking the time to connect with the artist, and you're really listening to what they're saying so that you can come up with the best possible solution that can help them overcome some of the things that they're, going through. You know what I mean? So the empathy model here is that sometimes you may be offering a certain service, but depending on what they tell you, you might be like, okay, so I have to shift a little bit or come up with something that's a little bit more customized to their specific situation so that it can work with what you're offering kind of thing. So that's what I mean by
Yeah.
empathy.
I like that. I like that because I think I just usually refer to it as active listening. And
Yes.
what I think is so powerful about it is that if you're like, hey, the product is the product, this is what you get, that's it, and it's very rigid. If they don't feel like it meets their needs, then they might actually pass on it. But if you have
Mhm.
some flex, just know where you can go with it. So it's like I might, if you're like, hey, I'll do three beats for 1,500, but you pitch it as one, now it gives you wiggle room to go and customize it further if that's not a good fit for them. So I really do like that because then it's like, okay, you can pull out that ace out of your sleeve,
Yeah.
and use it
Yeah.
later, and then they get more value for probably the same amount of money. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And we're not playing the convincing game because for them connecting with you in the first place is because they had a need. They had something that they were looking for. But if you can show them that you can bring value to their table and solve their problem or overcome the challenges that they want to, to help them overcome the challenges that they're going through, you're not really convince them in any way. It's just if it makes sense and if it's a good fit, they'll move forward, right? So this is where the empathy comes through for sure.
Absolutely. No, I love that, man. And it's like I think that that's what gives you an edge as well. But one thing I want to hear your thoughts on. So because I know 30 days in is when you started seeing results, and then I think you got four deals within the next 11 days after that,
Right.
and
Yeah.
all like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, that type of thing. So how much of a factor do you think having placements plays into it? Because I know both you and I have placements. How much of a effect do you think that has on the artist when they see you have placements?
I think it has a little bit of an effect, but I don't think that it's like a 100% like, oh, because he worked with so and so, I'm going to work with him, right? Because at the end of the day, they have to see how you can serve them, right? Oh, it's cool that you work with so and so and this and that. Like, it does help a little bit with credibility, but I believe like if you're able to be a problem solver for them, this is where you're gonna get a lot more leverage, right? And because the connection happens on a more on a more personal level, so they'll see it as, man, I really appreciate. I always get it like anytime I get on a call with someone, it's like, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. There's not a lot of people that do that.
Mm.
So you'll basically um, differentiate yourself just by being able to connect with them instead of sending them to a link that they're gonna go through by themselves, and then by the time they get distracted, they're on to the next thing, and then nothing really happens, kind of thing, right? So I think that it played a little bit of a part, but I wouldn't say like it's like 100% why it happened. And for me, in my case, I think something that really helped is that I nurtured my audience a lot, and then I show up with a lot of valuable things that help build trust, right? So I already built an audience over the years, so I'm not just starting out kind of thing. So I may have had a lead or an artist that been considering my services and products, but it may have been not the right timing, and then for whatever reason, because I connected with them and it was a good time, then it was like quick momentum from there. And just because the structure of everything that we were doing is streamlined, then it just kind of clicks and it makes sense. And then like boom, you get it paid in full, and boom, it's like, yeah, I'm down, man, let's do it. And then they can really see the vision of something that they're looking for happen, and then it just makes sense. The magic makes sense right there.
I like that. Yeah, for sure. Because it's like sometimes you get a not right now,
Hmm.
and like you're saying, we're not trying to convince somebody. So it's like if
Yeah,
now is not the right time, right place, it's like we just want to show up and position ourselves in a way to where it's like when it's the right timing, they choose us because artists, it's like the analogy I like to use is like the ice cream shop type
hmm,
thing where
hmm.
it's like they like different flavors. And so
Yeah,
if you're selling mint chocolate chip and they want vanilla, then it doesn't mean that they don't like mint chocolate chip. It's just they're going to come back around next time, then order that. So artists
yeah.
are investors. They buy beats all the time. So it's like we just want to position ourselves in a way to get a piece of that pie at some point.
Exactly. So you'll learn quickly that not right now doesn't mean no, right? Not right now means it's just not the right timing, or maybe they don't see the value in what you're currently offering at the moment for what they need to get done at the moment, basically. So it's like a timing thing sometimes. So you'll be surprised, like 3 months later, you reconnect because connection is currency. That this is what's important here. Connecting with the artist is really
Yeah.
important. Connection is currency. So 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, you keep just connecting, just touch
Yeah.
points and stuff like that. And then you'd be surprised that at some point they'd be like, okay, you know what, let's circle back about what we discussed again. What is it that you were discussing again? And then you get to the full connection mode, and then something happens from that because you stay connected, and you know what I mean, you're really focused on serving them instead of making it about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. In I'm glad you mentioned that like connection because there's magic words you can say, there's magic strategies, but it doesn't work unless you're connected at a human level. We're
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
robots or machines. So, like knowing how to actually care about artists and like solve their problems, I think you were talking about earlier too, is what's really why people pay for stuff in the first place.
Hmm.
You don't pay for plastic nails, so you're trying to find something that can solve that problem. So I
Right.
don't know if that's a good analogy.
No,
But
for sure, it's good. Yeah.
yeah, so because I guess like you mentioned I think before we even started rolling that you'd had other mentors and invested in other programs, and so I guess like I've done the same thing. So I guess why do you think that we would invest in knowledge or in mentorship when there's so much information already accessible online?
Because knowledge is power, but applied knowledge has way more, because a lot of people say that knowledge is power, but applied knowledge with action is where it's at. And if you're able to connect with someone that already have something going on, or that is where you want to be, and you kind of put yourself in their shoes and you implement their framework, some of the ways that they're doing is way better than you trying to figure it out by yourself. Like, we can all pick up a book, read the book, and then if it's a book about how to, for example, infiltrate a camp, if you're a father from a group of people that, yeah, kidnap your daughter or whatever the case may be. So you can read a book about it. What are the chances that you'll be able to successfully infiltrate, grab the hostage of your daughter, and then get out of there without nothing risky happening? I think it's very low. But like, if you go to the source, if you go to the actual author of the book, and then you figure out tactics and like how to use rifles and tools and this and that. I'm not gonna go in like full details and everything, but if you go to the source, your chances are much higher to get a result than you trying it by yourself, just because you think you have access to the information. Information is great. Information alone is not the full solution, though. So this is why coaching, mentorship, I believe in that, because I'm not only investing in the person, but I'm investing myself through the person, right? So that I can then grow and become more of how they're doing their stuff, like more like that person, and you get to grow and keep moving on.
I love that analogy too because it's like seems insurmountable,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
given it's like given the right training, then it's like in the movies when you see someone you're like there's no way I could pull that off type thing.
yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely kind of the same thing when it comes to like if I see Joe Rogan do a roundhouse kick and like knock a bag off of the chain, type thing because it's like a very powerful kick. I think like in the past I've made the mistake of saying like, oh, I know that just because I've heard of it. So like hearing about it, getting information is the first step. But when it comes to knowing something and understanding something, that can only come with reps, training, and knowledge and information is just the start. So like seeing somebody do a roundhouse kick versus going on the mat and learning the proper technique and like how to drive with your heel and all that stuff, and the weight training that goes behind it, that might take some time or
Oh
some
yeah.
effort and some mistakes and some frustration. So I appreciate you saying that because, I think that was like kind of the eureka moment for me is that like, when I played collegiate basketball, I was like, I had a coach.
Hmm.
Um, and whenever I started a business, I was like, oh, I don't need that. I can go without it. But getting consults from like producers and hiring mentors and that type of thing, it was like quote the shortcut. I hate that term, but it was a shortcut in that it saved me from having to make the same mistakes on my own.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if I saved you from making any mistakes or not, but would you say that this program helped you to, because I know you were saying you were getting like 2-3% people to convert on sales calls. Do you feel like it's helped you to get a higher percentage
I
of people
definitely
to
think it
close?
helped. Yeah, I think it definitely helped to get a higher percentage, just because of the way we're connecting with the method. So it drags a little bit longer, but because it's valuable for the artist, that increased. I believe that definitely increased percentage of close rate for sure. Like that, I can definitely see an improvement there versus trying to sell something on like on the one call and then what I mean and keep moving on to the next. It's more of a process where, man, okay, I got on this call, got to connect, really kind of got to understand if we're moving forward to the next step or not, and then when it makes sense, and then we get to moving to the next step, then it's really like it just helped them go deeper with you, deeper in your world. They see that you're paying attention to the music that they're making, paying attention to what they want to do and this and that, and doing that alone, I believe it definitely increase percentage of close rate for the
Okay.
services and the offer that I'm putting on the table. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Well, I mean, that's good to hear. And because I think if you were to, well, I do want to talk about because we mentioned pillars, and if you're listening, you don't know what pillars are. We try to structure what's called a high ticket offer, something you can sell for 1,000 or more. And you might be selling a custom beat, and you might have like, hey, I'll give you your money back if it doesn't sound perfect in 30 days. Let's say that's your offer.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're selling for $1,000. Now, having pillars is how you structure that offer, which is like, what are you going to say in that pillar that's going to sell that thing? So it's not really the pieces, but it's the payoff is what I like to say.
Yeah.
So I know you were talking about like packaging and that type of stuff. So um, and I've had students where they're like, "Oh, you expect me to like say the pillars on the call?" So I don't know. Do you feel like you still freestyle on the sales calls, or do you go in like with knowing pretty much what you're gonna say or what's
I
going
know
on?
pretty much knowing what I'm gonna say, and then I break it down in a way so that they can understand it. And then what I also do when I speak to them, I speak their language as well. So I kind of pay attention to how they're talking, and like it's like in one of the leadership programs that I've been before, they call it like style flex. I guess I've been style flexing all my life because sometimes I can meet someone and I kind of like adapt myself with the way they are so that they can feel like I'm connected with them. So it's kind of the same thing here. If you can style flex and speak the way they speak and kind of say words that connect with their language, then when you're breaking down what you're offering, what the service is, it's just going to make it all a lot more easier. And then you get to get the feedback right away from when you're talking with them and breaking it down. So, yeah, I kind of approach it knowing exactly what I'm going to say. And then from that, I get the feedback to keep moving forward until we get to the point where it's like the payment time.
I love that, man. I definitely do that a lot. I didn't used
Yeah.
to, and I was like, I'm gonna say things the way I say it, and they got to understand it.
Mhm.
And like when you're trying to be understood instead of understanding, like you're not gonna get a lot of breakthrough, and
Right.
so like you can get into a yelling match too.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
But yeah, man, no, that's great info. I think that was really helpful too to anybody listening. So, if somebody was thinking like, "Hey, I'm not selling as many beats as I want to, or I don't have like a clear path to sell really expensive stuff, 1,000 or more," what would you say to get them over that ledge of being like, "Hey, you maybe you want to look into getting a mentor, join a program, that type of thing."
Well, if, first of all, you don't know what to say to an ideal client or potential customer, well, you'll know exactly what to say. And then, second of all, you know how to, you know the exact steps on how to, lead them, right? So lead them to the point where, okay, they see the solution for what they may have a challenge or a problem with. And then if they see the value in what you're offering, well, the process of that is gonna you have to make it about them, right? So you knowing exactly what to say and having the steps to make it happen is what you're gonna get here. And I believe that you know even from my experience and learning from people that are not necessarily in the producer space like we are, I believe that you understand it more than if I'm with like a high achieving marketer that is in a different niche. Like it doesn't apply the same or it doesn't land the same. But just by us being, fellow producers and we have a way of communicating with the artists as well that you need to understand more of. I think like yeah, so you'll know exactly what to say and how to do it, and you'll be able to streamline from what you're offering, what your services are, and it may be specific to your specific situation too, right? So I may be selling, custom exclusive beats to artists, but you may be selling, unlimited packages of beats that you get access to, right? So there's different ways to package things. So you'd also get a different perspective on how to package different deals, and what makes the most sense for you is what you're gonna go and take action on. So yeah,
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's
yes
why
sir.
you saw a lot of success too. Was like you just mastered the packaging side because you've sold leases, you've sold
Yeah.
exclusives, customs, everything. So, well, yeah, I think that's about it, man. I think we've really like. I think it was really helpful for you to just share that insight too. So appreciate you coming on, and yeah, much continued success.
Hey, no problem, brother, man. If you see Michael Jordan as a coach, if you see high top people have coaches, well, there's nothing wrong in having a coach with what you're trying to do over here, so that you can get closer to what you want to achieve. So, highly recommend that you take on the coaching and that you take action on yourself to make it happen. So, let's get it.